Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm reminded of a quote by W.C. Fields who said, "Never perform after children or small animals." And I would tell you that Wolverine that just came across the screen there talking to us equals the animal, and that child of God is not one to be trifled with. And so I'm so excited to have been a part of this year. Now, what I've been a part of is building a ministry in contact. And the first time those words came out of my mouth as we started this class, I said, Lord, what are you calling me to do? I've always been fascinated as I've sort of professionally uh, been elevated or received rank or accolades and things about this notion of finishing well. Always puzzled about how Saul could be anointed of God and chosen by God, but somehow fall away from that. And the more I started to think about that in a verse that means a lot to me in Micah 6:8, which talks about doing justly and loving mercy and walking humbly with our God, how do leaders come away from those things? I wanted to be involved in that. And as I thought about it, the initial call for this ministry was to be Ruach. And then what happened was, as I was doing my research, I found out that that's the Real Estate United Against Crimes of Hate, and they've got a great website, and they're very, very deep. And I tried to do some internet searches, and they always came up in the top 10 to 20 hits that you would get on that. So I happened to be in class one day in my bachelor's class, and Sylvia Burris, one of my classmates, says, "Hey, do you guys know anything about bison? Do you know what the way they act in storms?" And everybody was like, "Well, no, yeah, they go straight into the storms." And then it's almost out of a bit of academic despair, not like true emotional despair, I said, "That's it. Be the bison." And so that's how this was born. The name came about. Um, and it was this thought that rather than waiting out the storm or running away from the storm, bison charge into the storm, taking it head on. Not only do they take it head on, but they run right through it. And I started thinking about what leaders do, how they fail. As the storms of life approach them, they tend to fold. But there's no reason for us to fold because we're not doing any of this in our own power. The Lord has placed us, the Lord has equipped us, and the Lord is sending us to do the things he would have us do in leadership. And so I think that sound coaching, the building of a community, biblical focus, I think that those are the conduits for leaders to embrace the need to impact families, communities, and nations. And that's what we set about to do. I think that all leaders must finish well, whether you're leading in your home or your community or leading in a nation, you've got to finish well. People have to become more legacy minded. Our Lord sent his very best because that's his legacy, my son Jesus. That's what he sent to us. That's what he sent to save us. And I think sometimes a careful reminding ourselves of what's at stake in this world, it's what's going to change the world. And I think that by equipping men and women, leaders, and I use that term for both men and women, by equipping them to do the things that are being asked of them, to keep them objective focused and legacy minded, that's where Bison Ministries can step in and actually move. And as I began to work on this more, I thought about in 1 Samuel 30:10, where David and his men had gone out on a raid and they had to go back. And David was in fear for his life, but he had to go back. But there were 200 that had to stay on the far side of the river. Those 200 men still had the same mission to care for their families, to lead in their homes, but they couldn't go because they were weary. I also find this ministry at the nexus of rest, refit, and a return. And that, in my mind, it sounds good, but in my heart, it fits. In my heart, it fits because that's what I need. I need to be able to rest. I need to be able to refit. I need to be able to return. Professionally, I've been asked to do those things time and time again. But as I began to look back through my own life, what I found was there were so many times where I didn't. I would rest, but I wouldn't refit. I would return, but I would not return fully. I would not be engaged where I'm supposed to be. And at that point in time, I started to wonder, Lord, how am I supposed to lead in the places you've called me to be? And I found myself more concerned with the professional than the personal. And so if you're more concerned about the professional, the personal is at risk. And our God is in our homes. Our God is in our families. Our God is in our businesses. Our God is in our nation. Our God's even in our politics. And what I found was I needed help. The help that came to me was trying to do academic stuff, determining that I needed to get an underpinning in the thing that that I see myself doing as my life's work in advancing the kingdom. This is my small part of it. I honestly believe that. So that's a little bit of my story. But what I'd like to share with you now is some of the principles that I believe we'll be able to operate off of. And what we see ourselves being able to do with this ministry is professional, Bible-focused, improved mentorship, leadership training, building a sense of community, as I mentioned before, for men and women to be able to have folks who are accountable. We'll start this out initially through our ambassadors program, which is an idea I came up with totally on my own. You might hear Nadira mention this, but I came up with this all on my own. We wanted to have e-retreats. I started thinking later on in this project, well, I might be in another country. I might be doing another thing professionally that might not let me get back there. But the Lord showed me through this courseware that we've been doing over this past year that you can build a sense of community. You can do this online. We can take the thing that the enemy might mean for bad, and that, to be quite honest with you, that I've used for bad in the past. We can take that and we can redeem that. We can redeem it and do e-retreats where we build a sense of community online. And then we share in one another's lives, our successes, sometimes the failures, but we can coach one another through those. But the Bible has got to be the focus. The handbook for life has got to lead us forward. And then to help to develop training curriculum and resources. A thing that I learned here as we started working through the convergence model for our projects here, what I learned is that there are things that the Lord will have you be passionate about. There will be places where you hear the Lord call you clearly to insert yourself, to bridge a gap for somebody else in either their understanding or their leanings or their love of Him and knowledge of Him. And one of the things that I love to do is I love to write. And I love to write. And so taking that love and then making that practical by providing curriculum to other programs. We don't have to be there. I don't need to be there. We're going to build a sense of community from T-shirts. That's what we're going to do. In our second phase of this, I would consider this the first phase. In the second phase, we're going to drive toward building a nest of $15,000. And that's going to allow us to then operate freely. But right now, the Lord's provided. I've got 90%. He's only asked for 10. Out of the 90%, we're doing the things that we're going to do to get this started and get this rolling. But we're driving to 15,000. I'm not asking, doing, because I'm trusting the Lord to provide. So if asked, well, my wife just asked me last night, but if asked where I'm spending money from, I was able to even share with her. And so not only is this ministry going to be able to do great things, I believe, but it's even doing great things in my own home. So praise God for that. And now, Dr. Nancy, if you could put up that first slide. The principles that we seek to operate off of are simply standing. And the Bible verse that I felt best embodied that was, therefore take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand firm. Stand. We honestly believe here that if you can stand, you can make it through. So many times in our lives, we try to stand alone. But having built a sense of community and purpose and interest, even, you have others who can stand with you. And that's the power of the ambassadors program. And I feel the Lord calling me to build these centurions. There's only 50 states, but if you go 50 states times 2 people, that's a century. That's 100. That's centurions. You know, in Australia, a century means 100 runs scored. So I'm going to build these centurions that are going to help me to manage this and to help me to build this network. I don't imagine this being a thing quick. I know this is going to take time and it's going to take engagement to get this done, but I'm counting on the Lord to send somebody to stand beside me to help me do this when I can, because it needs to be done. And then on stay, you keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you because he trusts in you. Isaiah 26:3. There's so much peace about that. Peace is, you don't normally define a word by using the word, but there's peace in that verse. And if you just read that to yourself, it answers the question of how do we get through the storms of life? How do we come out on the other side of our storms and still be committed to the things we're supposed to be, our families, our profession, those who need us, those who we're leading, so that we can finish well. And then finally, endure. The greatest example of endurance is Jesus, who was on the cross for us. Looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Hebrews 12:2. I would tell you that I'm absolutely passionate about what this might be. I need nothing else. The Lord's equipped me and placed me in positions where there's an opportunity for me to leverage the things that he's already given me to help somebody else. The selfish piece of all of this, though, is in helping others. I think I move to fulfill the Great Commission, but I also make myself better in the process. The Lord's given me other things that I intend to share, some of which, one of which I had a great opportunity to share with the doctorate class, and that's the window, the mirror, and the gospel. And to be able to share those things. And I started to wonder, Lord, why did you give this to me? And then I look back to one of the things we want to do. We want to develop curriculum. We want to develop resources to put into people's hands. I'm absolutely excited about what the Lord's going to do with this. What he's going to do with this is far greater than I could ever imagine. And I look forward to continuing to partner alongside the Lord to do the things that he'd have me do. I mentioned earlier that we were going to do this with T-shirts to build community. And so what you see here is some of the first shirts that we've had made. Can you all see that? Is it too far away?
We can see it.
Okay, thanks, Lily. And so there's the ministry logo on the back. And even getting that done was a thing that I wouldn't have known how to do before I came into this class. I thought t-shirts were still being made with iron-ons, but they're not. And I was able to get those shirts made. And then, from that class that I mentioned before came this t-shirt with a bison on the front of it that says, "Peace be still," Mark 4:39. And on the back, it started out as a joke in the class, but it says, be the bison, God digs bison. And I don't think that's profane. I think God digs bison because he made the bison. And when we look into nature, we can see that there's an example there. And if you consider the lilies of the field, if you just consider the lilies of the field, the bison stands as a great example for us physically. And even in its actions in the storm, it serves as a great example for us to continue to learn from creation. I look forward to your questions, and I will stand by to hear them. Thank you for your time and attention.